As my teacher said, my name is Maria Macuare, and today I'm going to be talking about a very interesting topic overall. At least, I think that is very interesting. It is about the SDG 11, also known as the Sustainable Development Goal 11, that is about sustainable cities and communities in Mexico towards a culture of sustainable cities. Next one, please. Okay, so I want to start with the interesting fact that around 5 billion people are projected to live in cities by 2030. That's a great amount of people, right? And knowing this, we can emphasize the importance of cities. Cities are basically the heartbeat of most societies, and they are complex systems that bring together diverse communities to work, live, and play. And also cities represent hubs for ideas, for commerce, also for culture, for science, productivity, social development, and much more. And cities at their best have enabled people to advance socially and economically. And as they keep growing and growing, especially in the global south of the world, this is a term that is used for these countries that are considered to be underdeveloped or economically disadvantaged, for example, South America. And as they keep growing, it will be vital to create this infrastructure and policies that ensure the universal access to all urban services. By 2050, it is expected that around 70% of the world's population will live in cities, and that's more than 50% now. Next one, please. Okay, so what is the SDG 11 and what are its goals? Well, this is one of the 17 goals of the 2030 agenda that wants and seeks to make cities and human settlements more inclusive, resilient, safe, and sustainable. But why? Why do we have to put that much attention to cities? Well, half of humanity, around 3.5 billion people, live in cities today. And do you remember I said 5 billion people are projected to live in cities by 2030? That's more than half of humanity. So that's why we have to pay that much attention to cities. And because the future will be urban and the majority of persons are going to live in cities, the solutions for the problems that humans are facing today must be found in city life. And what are these problems? Well, things such as poverty, healthcare, climate change, education, and much more. But how governments can achieve this? Well, this through the entire population's access to urban services and also affordable housing, safe, accessible, and adequate means of transport, especially for those that are in a very vulnerable situation. Also, cities can promote the reduction of the environmental impact, green areas, safe public spaces, and also something that is very, good is that this goal also seeks to preserve the world's cultural and natural heritage. Next one. Okay, so here there are some of the targets that this SDG 11 includes, but because of the time, I'm not gonna be talking about all of them. So I chose the first two that are safe and affordable housing and basic services, and also safe, sustainable transport systems. Here there are some other targets. All of them are important, okay? Don't get me wrong. Okay, so now I'm gonna be talking about the SDG 11 here in Mexico. For this part, I chose three of the most important elements, or well, I think that they are very important. That is inequality, access to urban opportunities, and transportation. Okay, so I put inequality and access to urban opportunities together because I think that they are very related. Demographic inequality is one of the things that give shapes and characteristics to a city, but it's also a two-way process because the construction of a city also gives this discrimination and inequality to people. And for example, here in Mexico, the wealth differences and also the housing market, they are filtering people into different neighborhoods inside of a city. But how? Well, the most expensive places are only accessible for those families that have the more economic resources. So that's a very bad problem. And in the other hand, the poorest families are forced to live where rents and prices are cheaper. So that's unfair. And Mexico is one of the 20 richest countries in the world, but also is one of the most unequal economies. And according to a diagnosis that the Mexico Cities Authority made back in 2020, around 50% of their population are living in poverty right now, and only 7% of the people have wealth. Next one. Okay, so according to Coneval, here in Mexico, approximately 14 million households do not enjoy the right of decent housing. But what is the main reason for that? Well, it's what I just explained. It is the lack of economic resources, and this represents around 45% of the total registered housing in the country. Here is a list of one of the poorest states in the country. In the first place, we have Chiapas. In the second place, Guerrero. And in the third place, Oaxaca. And 70% of their population is in urgent conditions of improvement, or total change of housing. But what does a house need to be qualified as decent? Well, it basically needs all basic services such as water, electricity, gas, and even internet is something that is something really important right now. In Mexico, 2 out of 10 inhabitants lack access to this type of service, and this represents 19.3% of the population. Next one. Okay, so the target 11.1 is responsible for contributing to the improvement of this problem that occurs here in Mexico. So some things have been put into practice to mitigate this problem. For example, providing basic services for all and guaranteeing the access to equal opportunities in cities. Between 2013 and 2017, this program called Hipoteca Verde represents an investment of 487.4 million pesos to finance 1.6 million mortgage loans. And something good about this program is not only of the mortgage loans that they gave to people, it is also that these houses financed through this program have eco-technology, so it is something good for people and for the environment. Okay, so the second element is transportation. Since the invention of the automobile, cities began to be made solely for them, and with this the terminology car city emerged. But what is exactly a car city? Well, this is basically like an endless spiral because vehicles need roads to be driven, and good highways and good roads increase the demand of vehicles, and again more vehicles means more roads, and it's an endless circle. But this type of city car has brought with it so many negative effects for society and for the environment. For example, more deaths, more accidents, more death from pollution, more CO2, more climate change, and even more. And although in Mexico, 37.9% of the people use public transport and the other 5.4% use bicycles, most of the spending of the federal funds are destined to the maintenance and expansion of roads. So yes, Cities are basically made for cars and not for people. And here in Villahermosa, we have a very good example what happens here in the Universidad Avenue. That yes, they wanted to invest in the improvement of the infrastructure, but sadly, they made the traffic worse, and it doesn't represent any improvement. Next one. Okay, so faced with the dominant card city, then it provides us for a new model called postcard city. And this model doesn't mean the completely eradication of the guard, but it's correct usage and share of it, not for a single person, but for the entire community. And for this problem, the target 11.2 seeks to create much friendlier cities with human beings and the environment, and this through investment in public transport. For example, back in the pandemic, the Mexico City's government joined the global trend of installing emerging bike paths as a way to guarantee the physical distance and to avoid the crowd in public transport. Next one. Okay, so according to the blog Valor Compartido, this is one of the most sustainable cities in Mexico. In the first place, we have Guadalajara, that it got the 58 of the average, and it has an outstanding work in terms of eradication of poverty, also climate change, the protection of terrestrial environments, and etc. In the second place, we have Mexico City. Mexico City got the 57% of the average, and it has an outstanding job in terms of public transport, sustainable communities, and also in green terms, it has a lot of parks, and it's ahead of most of cities here in Mexico and even in Latin America. And in the third place, we have Aguascalientes, that is considered to be one of the most sustainable and also one of the most ecological cities here in Mexico. It got the 57% of the average, and it has an outstanding work in terms of clean water and sanitization. And here they are some of the most sustainable cities around the world. In the first place, we have Copenhagen, Denmark. This city is recognized for its investment in renewable energy, ecotechnology, and also in the installation of roads and basic lands. And this city aims to be the first carbon neutral city by 2025. In the second place, we have Amsterdam, Netherlands. This city is constantly promoting the usage of the electric vehicle, and in its city they have this EV charging station for electrical cars, and they also encourage their population to install rooftop solar panels and also to grow their own food in a way to be always like giving a chance to the local economy. And in the third place, we have Stockholm, Sweden. This city is a sustainable plain city, and it has a goal that is to eliminate completely the use of fossil fuels within 20 years. Okay, so here are the conclusions. We can say that cities will need stalling plans and also a very strong support to achieve the targets. Innovative solutions are needed, and to help to create this type of people-centered cities where citizens are involved and also influencing how they interact with their community. Also, civil society can play an important role, bringing together the local people and also the government. And This author, Daniel, said that the targets have the potential to impact real changes across many of the sustainable development goals. And we have to make sure that they have the power to make a difference. Mexico, it is on a good way to improve their cities. It might not be something immediate, but for sure it's on the right track. And it's very, very important to remember that sustainability is about preserving what we have right now in the world for future generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maria, for an amazing presentation. And we will continue with our program. So let's give the floor to Daniel Eduardo Ramos Romero, who is going to talk about